Welcome to the Here and Now Show. I am your host, Rhonda Ray. Hey. And if you tuned into my show before, you know that I'm coming from the Midwest when we come in, show in, and show out. Hello, somebody. Gotta love your city. And if you tuned into my show, you know that have created this show where I have taken real life events and turned them into a positive living. And if you have any questions or if you have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comment box because I believe and I feel that all voices matter. So, with that being said, let's start. If you've tuned into my podcast, or if you've been rocking with me since January, thank you very much. You know that I love jazz music. It sets the stage. It gives me, the moment for us to just feel good. And for me, jazz always feels good. Jazz is just for me. It's just lightens the mood and kind of set the atmosphere. But before I start that, I do want to say that this is Mental Health Month, and it is very important to me. I had spoke on topics prior, with mental health. If you got a chance to listen, one of them were it's okay not to be okay. Another one of my topics were um, anxiety, fight or flight. And it kind of, goes hand in hand with, how to deal with your mental health. So this essentially would be a part three. So if you don't mind, let's get the jazz going a little bit before we dive into the show. And then I'll be right back. Well, I'm actually not going anywhere, but like I said, I love the jazz. I'll play it. My glaze on, guys. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm so glad you guys are here with me in this moment. And I feel blessed to be here. I'm streaming from the library today. I've been trying to. Oh no, we got to stop that. My bad. I am not perfect. The interaction, it happens. But back to what I was saying. Let's get into it. As I said before the break, this is Mental Health Month. It is something that I'm very compassionate about, something that I relate to, and something that I hope that anyone that's listening can relate to as well. And I don't know who you are at this moment, but thank you for the hearts. But if you feel lost, or if you feel like that you wanted to give up on yourself, I need you to step back and join me because this is going to be something that you need to hear and maybe not what you want to hear. And I always say that, by all means, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a therapist of any kind. I'm just a person that's been through the ups and downs of life and I'm living it. And so we continue to go on with it. So, with that being said, um, again, welcome back to the Here and Now show. It's me, your girl. I'm glad to be here. I feel great. Although, being in the Midwest right now, the weather is so up and down right now. Like, it almost looks as if it's going to be a tornado. But to be honest, it looked like it could be a tornado. And then, there were sirens to let us know that we probably should take cover. Me being here and making it here is a blessing. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I do want to take up some time. But like I said, today, I'm talking about something And I want to talk to somebody, who's listening, or who's just now listening, if you almost felt like giving up on yourself. That's somebody that is smiling on the outside and have been crying on the inside. They've been crying so long that sometimes they don't even know what peace feels like. And if that's you, if you're that somebody, then hello, this show is for you. I'm talking about healing. I'm talking about learning how to love. I'm talking about learning how, after, when I say learning how to love, I'm talking about learning how to love after life has hurt you. I'm talking about being single and understanding that single does not mean easy. And as always, I always want you to remember that I'm always thinking about you men. So this is for you guys too, because men hurt too. Sometimes, in society, you know, men might have been raised, or maybe they've been taught, not necessarily society. Society doesn't help, but some men have been taught or raised that, men don't have time to hurt. They don't have time to cry. But I tell you what, and some of them were even told, "Hey, man up." But and they show up with no emotions, and they have emotions. So this is about you, because pain doesn't care if you're a man. Pain doesn't care if you're a woman. Hurt can set on anyone's chest, and tears can come from anyone's eyes. It can come from everybody's eyes. It's no color about where tears fall down. Pain does not discriminate. So today, this is a healing room. No judgment. No judgment. So if you are one that's felt lost before, or you've been lost, you need to hear this, because pain does not mean your life is over. No, it does not mean. It means that you have the will to live. Sometimes being lost is just a road to find you to the way that you were meant to take the whole time. And I tell you something else. Sometimes our man upstairs, the higher power, my God, your God, and what you believe in, that sometimes he will direct your GPS on your life so you don't condemn your future. Hello, buddy. So I want you to grab a coffee or grab a cold bottle of water. You know me and my bottle of water, cold water or tissue, because you might want to cry a little bit. You might even cry a little bit. Get some tissue if you need it. And if you're driving, keep both hands on the wheel, because this message I'm about to give, I'm going to drive this message right to your home. So I'm going to take another few seconds to play a little jazz, a little moment, so you guys can grab your coffee, grab your water, keep your hand on the steering wheel, because I'm going to drive this information, this conversation to you in your home. So sat with me. I won't keep you long, but sat with me and we'll have a great time. So with that being said, we're gonna play a little jazz before we dive back into it. You guys are like, oh my God, so many, but I love music, and jazz is one of them. And it just sets the stage for me. Not long, just a moment. 10 seconds, go to welcome back, welcome back. Like I said a moment ago, before I took that 6 second break. And I said, if you're feeling lost, or if you feel like you need to hear this, please sit with me. You know, and one thing I want you to always remember, that you are allowed to start over. And starting over does not mean you started from scratch. I also had a topic on that. You are allowed to change your mind. And change is good. Changing the mind looks more like, some people, find that change can be very hard. And change can be hard when you're not used to change. But sometimes change can be as simple as, like for myself, I could eat a burger at any burger joint, just about, right? And I've been doing this for years. But then I decided, let me try something different. And I went from burger to a fish sandwich, so I changed a little bit. And the sandwich was good. So you are allowed to change. You are allowed to change your mind in any situations. You are allowed to change because without change, sometimes you'll find it hard to grow. I mean, you'll grow in age, but your ability to grow to see more of what you're built for may be at pause if you don't attempt that change. You know, you are allowed to grow out. You are allowed to outgrow people, places, and things, and the old version of you without feeling bad about it. And some people are afraid, like, oh man, I don't want to outgrow, or I'm afraid to outgrow this person because we've been so close. But sometimes in life, you outgrow all those things. You outgrow people, places, sometimes things, and don't feel bad about it. You just grew up, you're just growing up. And if they can't grow with you, then maybe they need to grow on their own time and get your growing together. Because sometimes, I know that, sometimes when you're feeling lost, you know, I think that feeling lost for me, you have to like graduate from the feelings that no longer fit your life. So, like I said again, sometimes feeling lost means you have to graduate from what no longer fits you from your life. Like it doesn't fit you anymore. Maybe it's that old relationship, or maybe it's just that old friendship or that old life just doesn't fit you anymore. And that mindset that you had then, it doesn't fit you anymore. It's time for a new a mindset. And now, when you're in the midst of change, now you're in between chapters. And the middle part of the chapter can feel very scary. But in order to move forward, you have to pick a chapter. You can't stay in that same chapter. You have to go to the next page, which brings me to a story. Yes, I love my stories. And, not only are these stories real for me, but they are true and they're very much life changing for some people, you know. So I'll start it. I hope you guys stay on the road with me with this. But, again, like I said, I love to share stories. Not only they good for my mental health, and the energy, and they're also life changing. And if they're good for me, I figure they'd be good for you. But I had a friend. She was a lot older than me. If I remember correctly, I want to say that she was somewhere in her 80s, between 81 and 82. Yeah, she was an old soul. I mean, literally, she was older in her soul. She had a lot of things going on in her life. She was a great woman. She was, and I'm saying was, but let me finish my story. But she would always and often complain about how her life always felt like it was falling apart. And if it wasn't falling apart, she felt like it was already apart. That it would eventually soon crash, and that she would never be, happy. And not only did she always feel like her life was falling apart, she had built up a lot of anger and a lot of built bitterness. But you have to know her story. So you're thinking like, maybe 80 something years old, you have the right to be bitter. And I don't think, I don't know if you have the right to be bitter at 80 something, because I don't think you should be bitter at all, because it just kind of deteriorates your life and your future. But anyways, this woman, she was, often bitter. 98% of the time, she was bitter. I mean, she was angry at the cat that was down the street drinking milk, or she was angry at the dogs that barked too much, or just little bitty things, the birds that was always outside her window tweaking and birding, and while they were birding, she was just being angry. Oh, damn birds, shut up, bird, look at that cat, you know and she built this shell around her story. She was married for 50 plus years, to a individual, to a man, and 16 years into their marriage, he left her for another woman, or he filed for divorce. And with her intention to marry this man, they've been married, like I said, 50 years. 16 years later into the marriage, she decides, I am not happy. And, he filed for divorce, and now she became not only single, but a divorced woman and single. And mentally, it bothers, it bother as it should. Okay. And so for years, that carried throughout her life, she would see him and this other woman that he married. She would often see them, the town is not that great. So they would randomly bump into each other. She would see them and she would just say hateful things, and it continued. These things would be going on for years. Sometimes they would even, change the stores they would go to so they wouldn't bump heads, but it was almost impossible. But however, this went on for years. After he had married this other woman, 4 years into their marriage, he dies, right? Of course, she finds out about it and her pain began to cluster. She was already hurting from him leaving her for someone else because she began to grow bitter and wonder, well, why would he leave me for someone else? This was supposed to be forever, but the future said different. Um, as she became bitter of him leaving her, and then the sadness of his loss, and also the sadness of her, not being able to bear children, because of some things that were wrong with him. And when they divorced, she never, had kids after. Okay. So continuing to be angry and bitter and holding resentment. And that bitterness, then sadness continued to creep in. And then, hello, depression quickly found a place in her head and in her heart. Now, mind you, she was still working her ass off because she was a worker, but she was also working away the pain. She didn't care about the paycheck. She just keep her mind off what was hurting her instead of taking care of it and looking at the hurt and taking the hurt by the neck. Instead, it became clusters. And after so many years of the same routine, going to work, working long nights, coming home and still mad at the past, still mad at something that she could not change. She could not change it, and she was still angry for the things she couldn't change. So I would say about 2 years, maybe almost three, um, before he completely died. About that time, she decided that she wanted to seek therapy because she was hurting, and she began to speak to the hurt. She was tired of being sad. And what really, really drove her to seek help and better health for herself was one day she was in the grocery store, and she's as angry as a snake. She'll bite you. Yeah, she's gonna bite you. She's angry. So don't touch her. Don't do too much. 'Cause she's a bitter, and no one knows the storm that she's carrying. But she's, because everyone else is in the store and they're shopping away, they're doing their thing. They don't care that you're angry, and they don't know. And as she goes to the checkout line, a little girl runs past her and accidentally bumps her. Immediately, the little girl says, "Oh, I am sorry." And then the older woman, she begins immediately, not knowing that, well, immediately she says, "Move," to the little girl. And the little girl looks at her eye to eye, and she says, "You are too old to be this bitter and angry. You need Jesus." And she runs off, right? And at that moment, her breakthrough, that breakdown was a setup for her breakthrough. She had realized that she was angry, and for months she didn't, and for years she didn't understand who she even was. That woman, she's my friend, and she got her life back. It was a journey for her. It was a journey for years because she got her life back, the one that she allowed to almost wither away. She got it back, and then, um, her breakthrough did come through. She ended up, going to therapy. She even went to that store to start looking, to see if she see the little girl again and thank her, and her mother for raising such a brave daughter. And she was healing. And unfortunately, she passed over, 90 years old. But she died a happy woman. She had no longer. Oh, I have to add, before she passed over, she would see that she seen the woman that her husband was ex-husband, sorry, was married to, and she no longer carried bitterness. She could walk past her and not even care or no feelings. It was over. So, she did pass over, unfortunately, but before she had died, and she had chance not to give up on herself. And I don't want any of you guys to give up on yourself, you know. And sometimes when you're going through that hurt, and before you, think about, oh, this is in for me, maybe ask yourself, what if this is the hard season for me? Instead of me being upset about it, maybe I need to grow in this season instead of letting it destroy me. Because you don't want it to destroy you. And that's the one question that could potentially save your life. Is that when that hurt sets in, is what is this? Talk to the hurt, right? Before you give up on yourself, remember who you used to be before the pain. Before that pain introduced itself, remember who you used to be. Remember that you are still a dreamer. Remember that you are still a fighter. Remember that pain can walk away and make you forget yourself at times. And depression can potentially make you want to disappear from yourself. And I'm not talking suicide. That is a whole nother subject, but it falls in the same category of depression. Your life is worth it. Don't say goodbye. Your chapter is still going. Your book is still being wrote. You still have a chance. But if you're there and you're still listening to me today, even if you just, the only thing that, if you was only able to get out the bed and eat and breathe, that matters too. Because understand that some victories are quiet. Some wins, they don't come with trophies. And sometimes praying and getting up and getting dressed and doing it again, that matters. Like you got up, you getting dressed, and you prayed it, and you understand that all wins are not loud. You don't need a trophy for every time you win. When life gets stressful, going to the grocery store can feel like a group project. And why is it that when you are finally like, what, I decide to eat better, and then someone brings you damn donuts? I tell you, honey, the devil be busy though. Which brings me to, let's talk about living happy on purpose. Yes, no, happiness does not always fall in your lap. Sometimes you have to choose it. That means protecting your peace. That means saying no without writing a long ass letter on apology letter. You don't need a 5-page apology letter. Just say no. That means resting again without guilt. Some of us is exhausted because we keep volunteering for drama. You don't have to attend every argument. I promise you. You don't have to attend. You do not have to more or less indulge in every argument that you're invited to. People will argue with you all day. You don't have to argue back. It's taking my peace. I'm not going to argue with you. Live happy and live happy on purpose. Now, play some music, like me, play some jazz music, laugh out loud, call a friend, step outside, go outside, buy yourself some flowers. Hello, somebody. Hello, self love. That's self love. Buy your own self some flowers. Stop waiting for life to become perfect. We should never be perfect. But before you feel joy, man, feel that joy because joy is medicine. You know, joy is medicine. So stop waiting. Stop waiting for your life to become a certain way before you feel the joy. That joy is medicine, a healthy medicine. Ugh. So if you don't, so if you don't, so if you don't heal, you will always question a good intentions. You understand what I'm saying? If you don't heal yourself, you will always question good intentions. You'll punish honesty. You'll expect betrayal even when it's genuine, you know. And when you heal, you'll stop chasing love that cost you your peace. And yes, love again, loving again is definitely possible. But once you get used to healthy love, it feels different. Healthy love is calm, you know. Healthy love is respectful. Healthy love does not make you lose sleep at night, right? Healthy love also means taking time to know, what hurt you, what rejected you, what what is it about abandonment? What was it the lie? So when you stop healing, I mean when you begin to heal, that means you're taking, oh, okay, this is what happened when I had rejection. This is how I felt when I felt abandoned. This is how it was when I was lied to. And this is how it was when I settled for less. You don't want to ever settle for less. Either way, your healing path can be beautiful if you just try it. Also, I wanted to say that if you're single, I want to salute you. I know from experience that being single can be very scary. Single and dealing with mental health issues, it can be very scary. But while you're in your season of singleness, you will learn how to stand alone. You can't help but to learn how to stand alone. You will learn how to hear yourself think, how to build without distraction, how to love how to love yourself properly. Single does not mean punishment. Sometimes single means it's preparation. As I do often, you know, never do I ever forget about mommy. I don't because I want you guys to know I think about you guys all the time, and never ever do I forget about you men because like I said, you men, you guys hurt too. They've been cheated on, men's been cheated on, or they got abandoned too, and they got used to, and they get depressed too. But many men suffer in silence because they were taught that silence equals strength. And no, I'm here to tell you, it does not. Help healing equals strength. You know, and man, if you listening, you don't have to. You don't have to bleed in private just to look tough in public. You don't have to bleed. Just look tough in public. You guys are tough. You men are tough. You work. You provide, and it's okay to cry. And women who are listening, some men are healing too. So we got to be careful not to assume that a quiet man is a cold man. Some men is carrying pains and they never even learn how to name it. But at the end of the day, we all need grace. I had a male friend tell me, excuse me, nobody ever asked him if he was okay. They only asked, what can I provide? And that hit me deep because sometimes people love what someone does, but forgetting that that they're a human being underneath all of that. Men need kindness too. Hello, somebody. And when that man asked me that, it's like nobody asked me this. They just want me to provide. And I had to tell him, that hit me deep, sir. Because, you know, we sometimes forget that you guys are human too, even though you're on this earth with us everywhere. And I had a few questions and answers. That questions were sent to me, so I'm going to answer them. And if you feel like you want to answer and you have an answer to any of those questions, feel free. The first question was, ooh, how do I know if I'm healing or being distracted? If your pain gets louder when you're alone, you're probably distracted. Because healing can set in silence and still breathe. Hello, somebody. Should I date while I'm healing? You can meet people, but your words First, don't build romance on unsolved pain. Just remember that. Just don't build romance on unsolved pain. So yeah, be good. And someone else said, why does single feel hard sometimes? Well, my theory is because strength gets heavy when you carry it alone. But that does not mean that something's wrong. And then it was, how do I stop feeling lost? Start small. If you want to start, how do I stop from feeling lost? Start small. Like maybe you'll clean room one room at a time. You know, maybe you'll take a walk or say one prayer, or often, you can return to the small steps. You'll know that you're lost because your interest will be less than zero. You're not going to want to interact. You're not going to want to talk. We don't want that. We don't want you to do that. So take small steps. Sometimes another sign is that you're feeling lost is sometimes, when I was going through my journey, feeling lost for me, a lot of times was not eating. I didn't eat. I wasn't hungry. I didn't have an appetite. And then I realized, I can't literally help my mental health on an empty stomach. We don't have low sugar. So I know it's a journey. Um, and you will get through it. Mental health is real and it happens all over us. There are some people that think people, that go through mental health that is potentially they're bad people. But I'm here to tell you, you're not a bad person. You've been through a lot and you didn't know how to, alter those feelings and you became depressed. And then, sometimes, when you become depressed, alcoholism sets in, addiction, and I don't just mean alcoholism. I apologize for that. I meant to just narrow it all down to addiction. Addiction, depression, anxiety, they all can set together. And I've had a lot of pain and I've had a lot of good moments, but I've had moments of where my mental was not okay. And I had to step back and say, hey, this is not how I want to be. You're not weird. You're not strange. You're just going through the change. And it's a season, and that season will expire. Because, if you allow depression to set in the room too long, it will become you. You can still be depressed and still have a great life. You can still have mental illness and still have an abundant life. You're looking at it. I have mental illness and I'm living an abundant life. I'm not perfect. And, for judge, do not judge. So don't feel bad for what has happened to you is, and don't feel bad for the things that you cannot change. Just change it and say, hey, I can't change it. So just remember you are not behind. You are not too old. You are not too damaged. And you are not too late. Your next chapter does not need permission from the last chapter to go forward. As I close today, I want to speak to any persons who's ever felt sad. We've all felt sad. So that's broad. Who've ever, felt like, God, I just don't feel like me, please stay. Just listen. There is a light in you. There is a light in you, and that light is bright. Everyone has that light, and I believe it. So, you please stay around to see that there's light at the end of this depression. There is light. Stay around for the better days that you haven't met yet. Stay around for the laughter that is coming back in you. Stay around for that person who will return. You're back. Stay around from that version of you that is healing, that is creating right now. Sometimes the road will get dark before the sunrise. It does. Don't judge your whole life off one season. Okay. Your story is still being wrote. Like I said, there's hope and there's joy. We got this. We got this. I got this. You got this. We can do this. Mental health is real, but it can be managed. You got it. So Thank you guys for tuning in to me for these 45 minutes. It's been great. Feel free to leave questions or any comments and to stay connected with me. Please check me out on Marshall's Books and More on my webpage. Shop prices is great. You know, they're reasonable, shipping and handling. It is wonderful. Stay connected. I will keep you guys updated on my book event, my book signing event, Missing My Daughter Ava, book three. Hey, it's going to be out, and we're going to have a book signing in June. I'm excited about that, so I would love it if you guys. I'm trying to think if I want it on Zoom, so I'm excited about that. Thank you. Well, again, thank you for tuning into my show. It's been blessed. I'm going to go home before the storm comes. Blessed to make it through a whole show without the storm coming. I love somebody. So remember, you are worthy, wealthy, wise. You are your storm, and you can change anytime. Thank you for tuning into the Here and Now show. I appreciate you guys for tuning in with me. It's been a blessing. Go home, get you something to eat. Keep your hands on the steering wheel when you make it home, and good evening.